Hi, and welcome to another episode of the Blueprint Roundtable. I'm your host, Chrissy Manzano, and today I have Emily Bell and Lizzie Castro with me to talk about an interesting and popular topic around candidates sharing layoffs on social media. Is it or is it not professional? Emily, I'll go to you first.
Yeah. So I think it's all in your tone and how it's handled and approached. If it is just a trash sesh of previous company, even if all of your points are valid, it probably would be perceived as unprofessional. I think it's important to keep in mind, even when you have a very emotional thing, right, which is being laid off, to when you have that emotion presented to the world at large, context might not also translate. And so it might come across as just angry, which you're valid in those feelings, but context is everything. So I think the professional way to go about it is ensuring the appropriate amount of context where you're not, just dumping a lot of grievances out into the world. Um, I think it's a good thing to share. I think it does a couple of things as long as it's done professionally. It allows other candidates that might potentially be considering that organization to have a really important variable data point to in their consideration of joining that company. We've seen a lot in 2023 where you have a round of layoffs, and then you're still hiring in certain areas of the company, and then that area is also impacted. So I think it allows for open communication in the market, puts more power into the candidates being assessed, and I think it also holds the companies accountable to if you have to go through a round of layoffs. It's an unfortunate scenario to be in, but it does happen. To go about it in the right way, in a thoughtful way, and that it is a business decision, but you're essentially making a business decision that profoundly impacts people's lives and their livelihood. And so I think that if done in the right way, I think it has a positive impact for both candidates and holding companies to a higher standard. But I'd love to get your thoughts on it, Lizzie.
Yeah, I do agree. I think it's all about the tone and how you go about it. I personally consider LinkedIn as a form of social media, just more in
Sure.
a professional way. So, LinkedIn, yes, completely think that's the perfect place. I do think in this day and age, too, it's way more common to see people utilize other social media apps. And I'm going to
Yeah.
specifically talk about like TikTok, for example, especially with like Gen Z, who probably is going through their first rounds of layoffs ever. I've noticed a lot on my For You pages, people making videos and talking about, I just got laid off. This is what happened. And then they actually talk about the experience they have and they use it in a way to utilize a platform that they maybe have to see what connections are out there. I think that's a reflection of a positive way of using it. I haven't seen many people use other platforms like Facebook or Instagram, for example, but I do think, like Emily said, using the right tone, delivering your message the right way, not bashing the company first and foremost is the most important thing. And I think it can be done in a respectful way where you do get your point across, and it also can help you build a lot of connections.
That's a good point.
So you both believe it's professional if done in the correct way, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So one thing that y'all both said that kind of stood out to me was like not bashing the company, but isn't posting that, even if you say all the right things, technically bashing the company, right? Like
Well,
in a very non-discreet way, right? Like, hey, they did
I
the
don't
whole
think
thing to
so.
me, but I'm not talking like, I mean, to be fair, like they kind of are, even if it's done the right way. So just curious.
Right.
it's like it's a professional way to maybe air some dirty laundry out. That the biggest thing is like as a candidate in today's market with social media, you are your own brand, else like separate from your company's brand. And so I think that if you present your brand in a certain way, that is the perception, right? And so whether you're valid or not. And so I think that for example, when I've left organizations before and interviewed other places, there's a way to air that out in a professional way that's translated accordingly. If you're asked why you're looking, professional way to say that things aren't going well is, I no longer really align with their go-to-market strategies or their business model. It doesn't resonate with me. I don't feel like I can be successful within that capacity. So it's like you're saying the same thing, but you're doing it in a way where there's not as much trigger aligned to it. And for a company that's just done layoffs, I think a reasonable expectation is that that layoff is going to be publicly known. And so
Yeah.
you're really just reiterating what's
Yeah.
already known, and you're saying, I was personally impacted. So I see your point, and I don't disagree, but I don't think I think especially if it's done correctly, I don't think it's like bashing the company. I think it's just saying like, unfortunately, this happened and I was affected.
I agree with that because I also think too layoffs are done and it blows my mind. Some companies go about it.
Yeah.
Honestly, there's no perfect way to do it, but there's companies that go about it the right way.
Right.
And then there's companies that go about it the complete wrong way. And just like personal experience, when I got laid off 2 years ago, it definitely like hurt me in the gut, super upset about it. But I also had such a great time when I was at that company that yes, I did post and say, unfortunately, my time at whatever company it was has come to an end due to layoffs. But then in my message or my post, I also was like, I appreciate the time and the people I was with for
Yeah.
that. I'm not bashing the company there. Yeah, I'm making it
Yeah.
come to light that they did have layoffs, but I'm also showing I'm grateful for my time. And now I'm open to work. I also know people who have been in awful circumstances who have been laid off and they then posted and it was a horrible situation for the significant person. And they did tag the company in it. And then the company did come down and get a lot of backlash for it. So I think it really depends on the situation and how you want to go about it. But yeah, I think it's always case by case.
What about, so you don't write anything about the company, but you post the recording of the layoff happening.
I think that's a risky move.
Okay,
I
well,
think
tell
that
me
unless
you
you have
is it professional or unprofessional? And let me not
Unprofessional.
say
I think it's
company
unprofessional.
handled it horribly, horribly.
Yeah.
Professional or unprofessional?
My whole thing is it's unprofessional because you don't have consent
Yeah.
of other people and you're not
Yeah.
showing their their face, but people who know them know their voice, and they're obviously in roles that are associated with this type of action within an organization. So deductive reasoning, you can kind of figure out who it is. And I think anytime you put someone on social media without their consent, and especially when you're potentially painting them in a poor light, even if what they're doing is incorrect, without their consent, I think that's unprofessional. There's some
completely
ethics
agree.
associated with it, but I think baseline it's unprofessional, and there could even be legal implication for you for doing that. It's just not a smart move. I think just keep it from your perspective, keep that perspective, as to the point as possible. And like Lizzie said, I think use it as an opportunity to let people know you're on the market, and garner that traction that way. I think that you probably feel better by airing it, but long term, the impact to you and the people that have not given you consent for that content to be displayed out there could be so negative where it doesn't outweigh, the short term feeling of that you had justice. I think that there's a better way to go about it.
Also chime in on that too. Let's say you did post the video and sometimes layoffs happen on mass video calls and there's a bunch of people on it.
Yeah.
There are people out there who are very private about being laid off and they don't want
True.
it posted anywhere. And let's just say you did record it. And even if their camera's not on, but you can see their first name and last initial. And I just happen to know that Emily B works at X company. I'm going to put two and two together. So I just think that's a really bad idea because you're invading those other people's privacy who also
I
were
agree.
potentially affected by that layoff.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. I mean, look, at the end of the day, there's a part of me that loves seeing companies that have been incredibly irresponsible at best
Yeah.
and reckless and unethical at worst get exposed a little bit because it's been so rampant, right? Like
Yeah.
we expect candidates and employees to be held to a high standard, but companies can, oops, I overhired. I'm just going to fire everybody now, right? Like that just doesn't sit well with me. But at the same time, so there's a part of me like that likes it. But I think as a business owner too, I'd be like, I would be hesitant to hire someone like that, because if it's pointing out people's wrongs, that can be more hurtful to you than it is to them. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
I totally agree. But that's all the time that we have today. Thank you for joining us on the Blueprint Roundtable. Don't forget to subscribe to our series on YouTube or on our website at blueprintexpansion.com. We'll see you in the next episode. Bye, guys.